Sam Amick, the NBA senior writer at The Athletic, covering the NBA in his most recent column, Why the Clippers' Grand Plan, Landing Leonard and Durant, is still in place. Sam, kind enough to join us. Let me start there. You think that's what Jerry West has cooking here with the Clippers?
Good morning, Dan. I mean, yes. The short answer is yes. The longer answer is that I was pretty surprised after, some of the recent moves in New York with Porzingis going to Dallas and the intel all around the NBA being that the Knicks feel very good about their chances of getting Durant, to hear that the Clippers are not waving the white flag. This is not the only plan in place, but, their number one plan A is still there, and they feel like they have, a competitive edge on the Knicks specifically and others when it comes to their top to bottom presentation. Steve Ballmer is his background. You're talking about a former Microsoft CEO and far and away the richest guy in the NBA. And they're going to try to paint a picture when July rolls around that compels, somebody like Kevin to come their way. So that Tobias Harris trade had a lot to do with that. And then also filling up the cupboard with a whole bunch of draft picks that also, that puts them in play for other situations as well.
Why do we assume that Kevin Durant is not going back to Golden State?
I'm pretty close to that team on a regular basis, and I think the answer there is just that it's been very, very uncomfortable all year long. And the irony of these past couple of days with his infamous press conference and, the frustrations that he has had is that I keep thinking about the fact that, Draymond Green has got to be sitting there in the background with a little bit of a smile on his face, like, man, I told you all this was going to be a problem, be a distraction. And, because back in, the early regular season when they had that dust-up in the Clippers game, as you know, that was the root of it all. That was the fuel on the fire, was the idea from Draymond's standpoint that Kevin's insistence on signing one-year deals, and this narrative that was going to dog him all year long was going to be a distraction. So I'm not ready to say it's 100% by any means, because you cannot predict what a man's going to feel, especially when he goes out and maybe wins a third straight championship. But the intel right now is certainly pointing him out of town.
Yeah, I thought that from the beginning, Sam, that he had kind of done what he wanted to do, got a couple of titles, and then, he got the blowback that you ruined basketball. He's not going to join LeBron. He doesn't want to help LeBron's legacy. He thinks he's the best player in the game. And if you can revitalize the Garden, that's where you put a stamp on your legacy. That's pretty impressive. And he's such a sensitive guy. But if you can't handle the media in San Francisco, I mean, if he goes to New York, oh my God, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
right?
And I think. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, listen, I will say that the media in the Bay, the tricky part about how he got frustrated the other night is I really do think that on most days his story gets told extremely accurately and fairly and deeply, if that makes sense. And the New York situation, like from a psychological aspect, and I know that guys like Kevin, it drives them nuts when we end up trying to read their minds. And that, I think, is part of his frustration. But you look at New York, and my thing would be that, yeah, if you go win a championship out there or even have a lot of success, you're going to be they're going to build a statue of you eventually. But if you don't, the other scenario, the other possibility is pretty disastrous. You're going to be miserable, and it's going to be Carmelo 2.0. And that is why I think the Clippers are looking at it again, saying, okay, if maybe that is a little too hot for you and you want a different speed, where here's the other narrative: come steal LA from LeBron on the back end of his career with the organization that has such a battered brand for all these decades of losing and dysfunction. And if you're that guy who kind of flips the script, then maybe that is more your speed. And these are all the things that he'll be chewing on in July.
Who's running the Lakers, LeBron or Magic?
What's crazy? It's really not LeBron. And I actually kind of want to write some more about this soon. It's Magic and it's Genie, and they have kept LeBron and his group not at an arm's distance by any means, but they have not kind of capitulated on every single thing they wanted this season. And I think the Anthony Davis thing bears that out. because honestly, I think if Rich Paul was the GM, then, obviously LeBron's agent and also Anthony Davis's agent, then, they would have found a way to get that deal done. Now, they couldn't control the way that New Orleans handled the situation. I understand that. But even the coaching stuff, some of that stuff is real when it comes to, and I'm not going to speak for LeBron, but people around him, certainly not maybe having the highest view of Luke Walton, but sure, he's still the coach. Just last night, Rob Pelinka said he was doing an amazing job. So they've tried to kind of keep a little bit of a distance between the front office and their franchise centerpiece, but it is tricky. And, I don't know where it's all going. This is maybe a longer conversation, but I really think after them missing out on AD, there is a scenario here, if I was LeBron, where I'd be pretty seriously concerned going to get this second star, because if you play out all the scenarios, I can't find one right now that really points in the Lakers' favor.
Yeah, we've seen this scenario. We've seen this script before where LeBron comes to town, changes coaches, and then gets rid of players. So none of these Laker players can be, I don't think, surprised by it. They might be disappointed, but they should have read the script that's been written a couple of times here. And I'm with you. I think Luke is on numbered days here, and these younger players as well. They realize that their time is probably short. But what's the Pelicans' game plan now over the next 3, 4, 5 months?
They are first and foremost. I think Dell Demps, their GM, Mickey Loomis, and this part. Yeah, he's the Saints GM.
Yeah.
But he also, technically speaking, oversees the basketball operations group for the Pelicans. They, I guarantee you, are now just hoping and praying that Danny Ainge and the Celtics meant, everything they said during these past couple of weeks. Because the way I was told is that, and this is a pretty unique situation, because the Celtics couldn't trade for Anthony right now, and they can't until July because of the stipulation in the CBA. Until Kyrie Irving is a free agent, they couldn't touch AD. They had to have these informal talks where you kind of set the stage for more talks this summer and give indications about what sort of package might be available for you at that time. And, I was told that Jason Tatum's name was definitely discussed, and not promised by any means, but discussed. And so if you're the Pelicans, I think that is the best package, but you cannot predict. Nobody is more cunning than Danny Ainge. And so I think, now the question becomes, what does Danny actually put on the table in late June, when you're talking about this thing for real? So Boston's front and center. You probably revisit the Lakers thing at that point. The Clippers are going to put a package out in front of New Orleans. And the draft lottery comes into play here big time as well, because the Knicks, probably more than anybody, are hoping they can get that number one pick. And if they did, and the odds are not great, it's 14%, then, they'd be in that AD game too. So It's uncomfortable in New Orleans right now, but I think this is why there was a major advantage to waiting until this summer.
The best rumor that you heard that didn't come through?
Probably Mike Conley to Indiana. He wanted to go east. Yeah, I can't blame him. The poor guy has just played all-star caliber level basketball for his entire career, but he's in the West, and this is the land of Steph Curry and James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and Chris Paul. And so I know Mike has pushed back on this idea publicly, but it did certainly seem like there were pretty strong indications given to the Grizzlies that he wanted to play in the East. And so the Pacers thing looked like a real possibility. I was told that it got pretty far down the road, and they just couldn't get it over the finish line. And that would have been one where, we continue to overlook Indiana.
Yeah.
I mean, they're right there with the best of the best in the East, and Victor Oladipo being on the shelf. Mike could have come in there and I think been a little bit of a savior. I think that would have been a great fit, but they just couldn't get it done.
Sam, great stuff. Always great to talk to you. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Likewise, Dan. Thank you.
Sam Amick, the NBA senior writer at The Athletic.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.